Welcome back to the Canned Reads podcast. Now, today's episode is not a letter reading. It's actually a new segment that I'm going to call the Survivor Stories. So what this means is it'll be talking directly with survivors who are either navigating or have extracted themselves off the back of a situationship, relationship, or any other kind of relationship with someone who has severe avoidant attachment. So for today's episode, we're actually going to be talking with a survivor who's been navigating an affair. And I want to point this out ahead of time because, firstly, trigger warning, I understand that affairs can be the basis for a lot of understandable resentment, frustration, anger, betrayal. So if this is a subject which is obviously triggering to you, I'd ask that you opt out for your own well-being. With this particular story, I just want to also make very clear that it is really trying to illustrate the complexity of navigating a scenario with someone who has severe avoidant tendencies when you're in sort of a third party position. Having worked with many people who've been in this dynamic, I want to make it very clear that this is something where it can get very complicated compared to just a relationship with a severe avoidant attacher. It takes on a whole different life of its own, and it's different. So with that out of the way, my purpose here is not to judge, it is not to criticize, it is actually to be compassionate and understanding with the survivor, Jasmine, that I'm going to be introducing in just a second, to talk about her experiences navigating this and also how far she's come in her journey to where she's at now. So without further ado, Jasmine, it's lovely to have you on the podcast. Would you like to tell everyone a little bit about yourself and the situation you've been navigating?
I can. Nice to have this podcast with you. Thank you very much for your invitation. I hope that everyone can understand my English. It's not my mother tongue and not even my foreign second or third foreign language. However, I will give my best. So, yeah, it was really challenging story, and I'm almost 40 years old, and this story really changed me, changed my mind and my perception of things. Maybe just short summary. Actually, I always thought that I had a really nice childhood and I was a happy child, and I got married with something 20 something. I met a nice guy, and yeah, many things were normal in my view. But somehow it was always a challenging relationship, and we had many issues, but I had no clue about what was going on and what was actually problem. I thought many things were normal. But however, we start growing apart, and I would say, yeah, in the end, it was really good friendship rather than relationship between men and women. We have a child together, and we still manage things really well. And I would say, we get along, very good along. And yeah, but after this relationship, I met someone who completely, yeah, crashed my understanding of things. And I start experiencing the level of intimacy I never had before. And I start questioning many things, like, why is it like that with him? Why it wasn't possible in my marriage, and so on. At the same time, other things happened in my life. I was going through a very difficult period in my life, divorce along with the small child and so on. And I didn't receive the support I hoped to have from my family. It was more like, I always had a feeling that I'm doing a mistake. I'm It was not like, okay, it's your decision, good, we will help you. It was always like, you sure? You think it's a good idea? How you gonna be that alone with a small child? Even though I have a career, I have my own money, I never did any bad things showing like I'm not capable of being alone and take care of myself. However, it was always like this lack of trust. And I think that it was really stressful situation in my life where I start seeing things in different light. And I thought like, why people who says it's my family don't supporting me? It's so difficult at the moment. And the only one person who supported me was my brother and his wife. And it was like, why I don't feel like I will be supported. And in one day, I remember that my mom wrote me a message, something like, yeah, you didn't show up for 5 days, and you don't care about us, and tried somehow make me feel guilty for not showing up, not calling them, and so. And it was always like that. I don't know what happened. I think the pressure inside of me were growing over years, and it was the moment where I just exploded, and I said, well, I was a really good daughter for many years. It was not good enough. Now I am comfortable with being a bad daughter, and I will show up when I feel like. Um, and it was a moment where I was going through, I just moved out from my ex-husband. I had to buy new furniture. I had a small child at home. I had to work at the same time and many things. And I thought like, what's going on? I just didn't call my parents for 5 days, and therefore I'm getting like a bad person. And something really weird happened. I start receiving one message after another, guilt tripping, trying to manipulate, and so on. And at this moment, I start seeing things. And it was like elephant in the room. And I was like, was it always there? And yeah, returning to the relationship, it was very complicated and very challenging because of this love triangle. And I decided to get out of that and start from zero. And yeah, I thought maybe it's a good way, like to choose to take this opportunity and to go to therapy. I started reading a lot. I tried to work with many coaches. I tried, I think, 3 or 4 therapists. I tried many things until I find someone where I felt comfortable with. It's you, Cam, and my current trauma therapist. Yeah, and coming back to my fear, when we start seeing each other, I had no clue about healing, about attachment styles, and so on. And I behaved the way I always behaved. If he distanced himself, I start feeling this intense pain in my body and the feeling that I have to chase him, to manipulate, to guilt trip him that he doesn't care, and so on. And we had we had a fight where he was like, but it's not true. And I said, yeah, if you would care more, you will do this and that and all this stuff. And after I start reading a lot about attachment style, it was like, it was just blowing my mind. I was like, no, he cares. No, it's not like that. What I'm doing there. And it was a really painful moment because I start seeing my own toxic patterns, and I start seeing many other things in my relationship to my parents, in my working environment, and I start seeing all these toxic patterns than the people trying to manipulate you. And it's also really painful moment where you see, oh, how I was able to survive in this environment for so long. And I believed that I was really happy, and I believed that the way I grew up was okay. Um, but now I'm realizing that it was a lot of, yeah, many things were not okay. Silent treatment was not okay. Many other things were not okay and struggling with. And when I had sessions with my therapist, um, sometimes she said, yeah, these things you telling about yourself, you have to see them like voices from your past, voices from your parents, voices from your childhood, which is not necessarily true. So that's my journey, and in relation to the relationship I have, it's difficult, it's complicated. I would say we broke up, yeah, after I think after 12th or 13th time I stopped counting. Um, it was just insane, but it changed me every single time. Every time we had an issue, I took this part of the issue to you or to therapy to discuss, to feel, to go through the pain. Last year, we were going through a very difficult period where our intimacy and relationship start deepening and everything, yeah, feelings start growing. And he started distancing himself. And I can remember that pain, and I think I got depressed, and I had a vacation for period, maybe 1 week or something. And I had so many plans what I'm gonna do with my free time and so on, but I was able to move through between my bed and the kitchen and bathroom, and it was, yeah, that's it, how I spent my holiday. Going through my pain, journaling, going to therapy and all this stuff. And I would say around about 2 and 3 months later, I start noticing that the feeling, this pain in my body does not exist anymore. It's gone. And even if I think about losing someone, my family members, my friends, and something, uh, it's not there. And you always hear a lot about healing trauma and loving yourself and all these things, but what does actually mean? No one tells you how it feels. What does it mean? Healing your trauma. What does it mean? You stop chasing people by just sitting there and counting days, how many days you didn't spoke to each other, or what does it actually mean? And for me, it was like very interesting moment where I had a feeling, oh, this pain made me chase someone. I tried to avoid this pain, and I went through this pain not just by sitting, crying, and eating ice cream. I recognized the pain. I went to therapy. I felt the pain. I noticed everything, and now it's not there. So that's where I am now.
Yeah, no, thank you very much for sharing that, Jasmine, because whilst I'm keen to get into the details a bit more about your relationship, I do want to say that really does present a nice overview of things. So just to recap, you know, you had a family relationship that seemed good at the time. So was your marriage, when you got married, like in your 20s, from what I understand. And then obviously, as the marriage started to deteriorate and eventually you went through your divorce, You also discovered a lot about the dynamics in your family as well. And I know you mentioned to me privately that well, it had been revealing what kind of dynamics those have actually been, and it's helped you better understand how they've affected you. And then I think in relation to the affair you've been navigating, it's obviously been very different to how conventional advice would tell you in terms of like healing an abandonment wound, because it sounds to me like instead of doing the traditional thing of going no contact, and I know this for a fact, you've been in semi contact, low contact with your partner, who we'll talk about in just a minute. But I think, and I want to make this very clear, when we talk about Jasmine's journey, it is not necessarily meant to say, do exactly what Jasmine's done to get to where she is. It's just to say, this is how Jasmine was able to work through her abandonment wound in this context. So I was thinking, it'd be great to hear about how you have navigated your relationship with your partner who's obviously having this affair. Can you tell us a bit more about like, how you met, what this dynamic has been like, and also, you know, how you got to where you are today?
Yeah, sure. We accidentally met on the street. On the street, it was not a dating story or something. I just, yeah, he was there, smiling, and somehow we had a short chat, and it was incredible attraction from the first second we met, and yeah, and yeah, I knew that he was married. It was like, yeah, what are you gonna do? Is it really a good idea? Yeah, but somehow at this point, I think I was so hungry in this moment to be loved by someone, or to experience this kind of intimacy and chemistry, that I didn't care much about that. I I must say I didn't have many thoughts about that. I was like, yeah, I had my flashes here, there, and there, and it was like, yeah, it's not a good idea what you're doing, and so on. But the attraction was so strong, the chemistry was so strong. It was just firework. And afterwards, I learned that it was a limerence, very strong one. And I think it was the same in his way. And we start seeing each other, and then he started pulling away after a couple of weeks. And what is really complicated in this dynamic is that, yeah, it's a lot of guilt and shame in this kind of relationship. And I think if you already have your attachment wounds, everything makes these things worse. So you're going from the extreme side of anxious attachment and avoidant attachment. So you just have, yeah, extreme version of both. And I tried somehow at the beginning to chase him, but then they broke up, then they came together. But each time we met, it was so intense, and it was so, yeah, so good. But I wanted to have more, and it scared him. So we start breaking up like one time after another. And one day we shared very intense moments. 2 days after, he wrote me that it's better that we stop seeing each other. It was, yeah, it was completely breaking point for me, and I went no contact. And I went no contact like everyone suggests, and to start healing and whatever. But going no contact, and I thought at this point of time that I'm doing the right thing. I didn't contact him and so on, but I still was thinking of him every single day. And I was counting days and so on. And it's so incredibly difficult. And I wrote him 6 weeks after or something. He replied. We had really nice conversation, and he was happy to see me, to hear from me, and we agreed on meeting up. And 2 days after, he wrote me an email and said like he had a long thought about things and better to stop here. And yeah, and it was the point, it's just broke me. And after that, I stopped like crying every day. I didn't know what to do, and nothing helped. And I went to how it's called? Tell me, Ken, if you have the lights and you have to move your eyes
Oh,
in the how it's AMDR or
yeah, EMDR. I know the pronunciation.
EMDR.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was the moment when I received this email. It was always in my head, and each time I thought about that, I start crying. And it was really nice experience with this type of therapy because after 4 hours of just doing this stuff, following the lights with your eyes and so on, the pain was gone. Sure. And I thought, oh, now I'm happy. I healed my attachment wound. Now I'm ready for everything. No, I just erased one painful moment from my head, and it was like, reality was a bit different. I was like, what?
I'm just gonna pause.
That's so-
Like, I laughed when you described that because I think that's what people often mistakenly assume. I understand that EMDR is supposed to be amazing, and I know it helps a lot of people because it allows them to sit with the pain of what they're going through, and at times it's very good with trauma-related stuff too. But in my experience professionally, I've yet to see EMDR always successfully work on these cases, you know, throughout the entire experience. Which is not to say EMDR is useless. I think it's fantastic, but I think these cases I think often need a bit more than EMDR, in my opinion.
yeah, it helped for the moment. It helped not to have this extreme pain by thinking on one accident. And I think it helps a lot if you experience really something bad, if you witnessed something, one car accident or something. I think it's a really good tool. But in my experience, it didn't help me to heal this one big thing. I, yeah. So, however, a few weeks after, um, I saw him watching my stories on Instagram, and I contact him. And um, we had a good conversation, and somehow we agreed on seeing each other, but I was still that anxious person. I was so incredibly anxious, and I tried many things, and I read a lot of books and so on, but it more of things I did were focused on another people and another persons, to understand another person, to understand my parents, to understand whatever, but it was less focused on myself. And we didn't met, and he start disappearing again. So he did not reply to my message again, and he disappeared. And I remember this amount of anger I had in my body, and I was so angry with everything. I was angry with him. I was angry with myself that I allowed this to happen one more time, and I disappeared. And I didn't I stopped contacting him, and he didn't come back. 2.5 months later, he reached out again. But in this time, I did a lot of work already in therapy, work with you, read tons of books in relation to attachment style, and I start seeing things in completely different light. I wasn't angry anymore. I had a lot of empathy for things which are going on, and I start seeing his behavior not like something which meant to hurt me, but something like, yeah, okay, it's the way he is, and it's not about me and my behavior. It's not about him. It's our story, which happened before we met. And we somehow have to deal with that now. And he showed up, and I remember that I was still really pissed. And the first conversation was like, I said, like, you disappeared, and if you will do that one more time. And it was, yeah, he went into protection. But the very interesting thing is, I realized that I had a lot of experience with narcissistic people in my life, and he was different. He he is an avoidant, but he's definitely not a narcissist. And he is, the way he behaved with empathy, with understanding. He was really cautious with everything, and it was like, that's different. I'm yelling at him, and he doesn't tell me that it's my fault, that it's something I did wrong. Why? Why you don't tell me that? I need that. I'm just starting to have this feeling again because it was something I experienced all my life. And he didn't. And I start seeing that things could be completely different. And we start seeing each other again. Um, what is different in this dynamic comparable to the normal relationship, that you have those periods of times where you don't see each other and you don't have this load of feelings at once. You can pause, you can split, you can think about things, you can process things, you can think about everything, and then you come together. And then you get another portion of intimacy and experience, and then you, yeah, like have again time to think about everything. We didn't meet very often. It was maybe once in a couple of weeks. Um, yeah, but we stayed in contact, and at very beginning it was more, yeah, I would say that physical intimacy related. And it was like the first thing I have noticed was like, aha, I can be myself. And we can discuss openly everything. We can discuss that topic without feeling guilty or shameful. And I think that was the moment where I start accepting myself the way I was. I didn't have the feeling, I didn't feel bad or shameful for my desires and for my ideas and thoughts. And I felt accepted 100% the way I am. And I think it was like vice versa. Um, it's how it continued. And there was a moment of intense closure between us where he pulled away and we didn't meet for, I don't know, maybe 2 months or something like that. And he told me that he feels really bad because of the affair, that he feels guilty and everything. And I said, I understand. I understand everything. I understand why you feel that way. I understand this hard feeling you have. And I think it was completely different from what I did as we met. I didn't say, oh, you don't care, or you have to leave your wife, or you have to do this and that. Even though I had those voices sometimes in my head, and it's so difficult to suppress them, to just to shut them out because they're so loud. They were so loud at the beginning. It's just incredible. I remember that he forgot my birthday, and I I was sitting there, and I wrote a list about things, what my mind is telling me, the story of my mind, and about the facts, what we know about our relationship, how he show up, um, what what I have in hand to support that he likes me, that he cares, that it's not about not caring, and so on. And I had such a strong battle inside of me. I think many people who had an anxious attachment style, they know that you struggle to ask for things you need. You struggle to ask questions. It just does not exist in your life. You don't know your needs. You never learn to ask for something. And it was like how I thought about how I'm gonna approach that. It was my birthday. It was important for me, and he forgot. And one voice was screaming like, "Oh, he doesn't care." And my list told me, "No, he cares. Just think about this, that, and so on." And I remember that I wrote him an email, and I said like, "Hey, I don't know whether it's important for you, something like birthdays, but it's important thing for me, and it's yeah, I don't know." And he was like, "Oh shit, is your birthday today?" And I said like, "No, it was yesterday." And the way he reacted, I understood that it was not malicious. He just forgot, and the whole story brain told me um, was wrong. And it was one I start taking all these things step by step. I mean, I'm a lawyer, and I used to relying on facts. So I first of all I start to learn to rely on my lists. Then I start feeling the things I had on my list. And each time my list was right, I tried to convince myself, okay, but you had this feeling already. So you knew that your gut feeling told you the right thing. Why you heard to the voices in your head? And it started growing and growing, and now I'm in the point that I'm more comfortable to rely on my gut feeling. I don't need lists anymore. I don't need these facts anymore. I know, okay, gut feeling, what are you trying to tell me? What we know about the situation, okay. And I see that those voices are they not that quiet, loud anymore. Sure, if I get in very stressful situation, it's still there. And it's still trying to convince me, oh, that, yeah, different things, different core wounds we have. It's depending on situation, but however, I'm more comfortable in with my gut feeling as with my thoughts, which sometimes come up. Uh, Afterwards, we had, um, yeah, we met many times, and it was always very difficult. And I start noticing how exhausting all this situation is for me. I never asked him to leave his family or wife because I don't believe in things like that. I don't believe that you can just leave someone for someone and be happy. I think you have to close one thing and then start another. And as long it doesn't happen, it will be the constant back and forth all the time. And I start looking for ways to get out. And it's not easy. I even start dating, and it's also not that easy if you're attached to a person. And he is a fearful avoidant, and he tried to convince himself that it's more physical related. Yeah, that we, yeah, that it's not that intense, it's not that deep, and so on. However, we stopped seeing each other, and we didn't see each other for a few months already, but we are still in contact. We have many conversation about everything in the depth I never experienced in my life. And what I figure out for myself, which was not possible in whole my life, is that I'm able to be honest. I'm able to be honest to myself, and I'm able to be honest to other people, which means I don't have to pretend that I'm strong, that I'm not tired, that I'm not hurt. I can speak up, I can show myself the way I am, and there will be a lot of people who will accept that. And I thought that no one will like me the way I am. If someone knew that I'm crying in my bathroom like for days, they will think, wow, it's just a weak person. And no, it was completely different. And we discussed things, and it was really nice to know, like, I can um, say, hey, I feel unimportant. I feel hurt. I feel lonely. And those words didn't exist in my vocabulary in the time before. Like a few years ago, I thought the only thing I'm allowed to show is how strong, how independent I am, that I don't have to rely on help from others and so on. Now I see that it's completely different. But another thing is, what no one tells you about is that you start losing many friends. You start losing many connections in your life because you start noticing how superficial things are and how superficial these connections were. And so I'm kind of in this breaking point where I'm losing all my friends, but I made these new experiences, and it's like our journey. I don't know how it will be in the future. However, we went from this, oh, it's just about physical intimacy, to we care deeply about each other, but it is like it is. He has family, I'm free, and I have to take care of myself. I don't know how it's gonna be in the future, but he's still one very, very important person in my life who changed me, who changed my life completely. Without this relationship, this intense feelings, I probably won't seek professional help. And I won't be there I am now. So yeah, I'm thankful for this painful and nice experience at the same time.
Yeah, I really relate to so much of what you said, even though what I went through was not like your dynamic. I mean, there's so many like intense things in your story that I just want to repeat because what you shared was amazing. So, firstly, Jasmine, thank you for sharing all of that. Um, I know because I've been working with you now for over a year. It has been a very complex journey that you've gone through. And as a counselor, I have worked with many people who've been in similar situations to yours, and it's different, very different from, say, if it's just a regular partner who's a fearful avoidant who's coming back and forth. It usually, in those cases, the person who would be you in this context eventually gets to a point where they're like, I'm going no contact. bye bye, and that's it. But the people who've been in these, you know, three-party affairs, it's been very messy, complicated, and something that you actually looked up, which I thought was incredible, and I'm really glad you brought this to my attention, was during your work, in therapy with me as you were navigating this and you were better understanding it was, also understanding the stories of people who are like you and what you're going through as well, too. Like finding out that, women like yourself who go through these experiences, aren't necessarily going to get their guy, in this case, your fearful avoidant partner who I've called Andrew, like there's no getting Andrew unless something drastically changes, and it rarely does, if ever. So, no one's winning in these dynamics. But what I've respected about you, Jasmine, in the way you've approached this is, you've gone through many stages in this journey. There was the heartbreak and pain of not having him around initially, the EMDR, the email where he reached out to you and he then eventually left you again, and that obviously brought up a lot of anger and frustration with him. How could he do this to me? This is cruel, which on one hand, yes, it is. But then learning more about him and attachment styles, being able to have more empathy and understanding for him. And then, of course, I think over time, what's been really interesting with you and, your journey is my professional opinion is it almost seems like as you continue to work on yourself and challenge the stories you have that have come up, it's changed the way you interacted with Andrew so much as well too. And not to the point where, I feel like you've both gotten more vulnerable with each other, but at the same time, what's really interesting is you've almost taken baby steps back from this dynamic as time has gone on as well too. And you've also managed to, in your own words, heal that abandonment wound you were feeling as well too, where now it's like, well, Andrew can come into my life or leave. It is what it is. It doesn't necessarily mean much. And I can understand that, he obviously is such a hugely significant person in your life. And I love the way you describe him too. Like, it sounds like you really balance it well, where it's like, I can on one hand see, the transformation I've had from this interaction, that, he's sensitive at times, understanding, empathetic. He actually listens to me. He wasn't shouting back at me like a narcissistic family member. And at the same time, he is also being very, my word, destructive to my mental and emotional health at times as well too. But I feel like, even though you've tried no contact, it sounds to me like, low contact appears to have worked well for you in your situation in terms of getting you to where you are today.
I wouldn't say, the thing is, I don't know that everyone praying about no contact and so on. But I think each situation is different. Each avoidant partner is different. And I think it's a huge difference whether you deal with a fearful avoidant or dismissive avoidant. I behave the way I felt it's right for me. I tried this cold, no contact and so on, but I hurt myself more than I helped myself with this no contact thing. And I think it was also sending weird tell me the word, signals to him that I don't care. And it was not the case. I cared, I deeply cared, but what was the problem? It was lack of boundaries. I think you don't have to have this no contact if you have boundaries in place, and you have to learn all this stuff. And I had no clue about that when I started my journey. It was like, what? I'm allowed to say no? I'm allowed. And remember, I sent you one movie where someone tried to speak up something and open their mouth and no words were coming out, just just ear. And it was like me, like you hear a lot about these things, but if you tried practicing and you never done it in your past, and you never tried it in your past, it's so weird. It's so like, what? Why I can't pronounce that? Why no words are coming out? Why it's so difficult? And you really have to take these baby steps. And I think that it's because everything started with physical intimacy, it was easier because many coaches would tell you, oh, don't have sex on the first date, wait 2 weeks until you will know each other, and so on. We went other way around, and it was easier for us to talk about that, and then we start talking about other things. And now when I start dating, it's really interesting. Maybe when we started was a trauma bond and all these typical experiences we shared. But now it's something completely different. I would say it's not the trauma bond anymore. It has changed. It's a completely different connection and completely different kind of relationship, even though socially judged and secret and so on. But what I have noticed is when I start dating other people and start having conversations with them, if they disappear for days or don't reply or just remove matches, I don't feel triggered anymore. I just simply don't care. Even though, and I'm start removing people from my list, not just disappearing, but saying, so thank you, we had nice chats, but I think it's not right for me. Next. And I know it was not possible for me like years ago, what this person will think about me. Maybe it sounds rude, and I rather stayed in conversations and connections where I was not happy. And now I understand that I should do that. I don't have to be rude. I explain. Maybe I mean I don't give many details, but I'm still thankful, and I say okay, and I wish you all the best, but it's not right for me. Okay, next. And this made me realize that I'm probably not that traumatized anymore because I don't chase people who don't choosing me. However, other bond is still very strong. Many things are uncertain, and I don't know how it will be in the future. And it's what is different to another relationship is you can't talk about that because it's, yeah, it's socially not acceptable to talk about things like that. It's not like you can have a drink and talk about these things with friends in the bar. You're pretty alone with all these things. And I learned to be alone. I learned to find suitable people to talk about situations like this, like with you, with therapists. And what was really helpful, you have groups of people who experience the same. And it's really funny that I we became a really good friends with one lady. uh, Her husband is cheating, and I'm on the other side, so I'm their fear. So actually, we're supposed to hate each other, but we become friends. We have daily contact, and we support each other. And it's really interesting that because we learned to share other experiences, to understand what's going on another side, what challenges we experiences, and we start discussing those things, our feelings, our thoughts. Yeah, and it's very interesting. And as I mentioned earlier, you lose many friends when you start your healing journey. You start seeing things you didn't see before. And as my therapists said, if you will be able to set boundaries with your family and with your mother, you will be able to do it everywhere. And it's so completely true.
Yep, exactly. And I also want to take a moment to say, a lot of people listening to this story, understandably, might be very triggered and say things like, well, you're still seeing Andrew, therefore you're not fully healed. If you said that, you need to be able to let go of someone in order to be open to someone new, how could you be dating at this particular point in time, and so on and so forth. I think there is a lot of judgment and shame put into people who are going through these experiences. But the thing is that, one of the things that's so important in this journey is baby steps. And as I've said to you, there are no skipping those baby steps either.
No.
You have to go through all of this stuff, and even learning to date again as well too. I mean, the way you've described your relationship with Andrew is it sounds like, yes, he is special to you, but not to the point where he's getting in the way of you necessarily starting an emotional connection with someone new as well, from what I understand. And I think even if he does, this is the thing about this journey. It's not about being perfect. It's not about, doing it brilliantly. And sometimes we are going to make mistakes that, hurt people in the journey. But I think the fact that you learned so much about this through this experience, and also, as you said, are learning boundaries. And I know, because I've heard the stories, you have been setting a lot of boundaries with Andrew in terms of how you navigate things as well. It's not exactly like you're being reckless with people that you date, for instance, as well too. And I think that I know for a fact, having worked with you for over a year now, you've grown so much from this experience as well too. Like, I mean, key things being that, I think a big one is you don't question Andrew's affection for you anymore. I think that's quite clear that you're like, I can tell there's affection there, even if he tries to deny it. Two is that I think that actually let me throw it to you. Like, when you look back at all the things that you've learned, what do you think of maybe the top three things that you've taken away from this experience navigating your relationship with Andrew?
I think the top one would be honesty. All those things happened to me. We always discussed. He knows that I start dating. He knows everything. Um, I know about many things which are going on in his life. I told him that I'm exhausted from this dynamic and it takes me a lot of energy, and therefore I really try to get out of that, but it's not, I don't do it in a secret way. Uh, and it's just not imaginable to have something like that with another person. Like normally people would do it like in a hidden way. You're like, okay, start dating. We have an affair, so why should you care? I do what I want, or maybe to use that to make someone jealous and so on. No, we discussed that, and I told him that the whole thing makes me very sick, and I want to get out. And the second thing is, I think no matter what happens in your life, and when people behave the way they behave, you have to look at the situation with a lens of empathy and understanding, like that they behavior most of the time is not about you, it's about themselves. Don't take things personally. I even had one case of sexual harassment in previous months, and I think I would behave in completely different way. I would have behaved years ago in a completely different way. I would take things personally and so on. Now I see the person We had an argument where the person got really angry because I rejected the invitation, his invitation, and I don't feel that I don't feel I'm not that bothered by this behavior. I understand that it's not okay, but I know how to deal with that, and I don't take it personally. As he said, "Oh yeah, I know you're that boring. You became so boring. We could have fun in the past, and now you this kind of person." And I see his pain. I see that it's the person is hurt, and I know that I shouldn't take this behavior personally. However, I made screenshots from this conversation in case of what whatever it could be because it was in working environment. And yeah, and I know that I also have to protect myself in case of whatever it could be. But it's the second big thing is don't take things personally. It's most of the time it's really not about you. Um, and the third one, um, yeah, the way the intimacy I have experienced. I don't think so that you is able to appreciate that if you're not ready to be honest with yourself, to speak honest about your feelings. And it's completely new world, and it's raised your standards. And I know if I will have the next relationship, I it's what I need. I don't need less. So if someone starts with this toxic positivity, like just smile, be happy, and whatever, like uh, you always see these mantras on social media, like I love will conquer everything. No, love won't conquer anything. And or this, the standard sentence, if they want, they would. I understand that it doesn't work. Sometimes you really want things, but your attachment styles, your traumas, and your fears does not allow you to make a step forward. And I start seeing those things, and I think it's about empathy towards other people and understanding their limits and not taking the things personally. Yeah, I would say it's my three experiences or my biggest three takeaways.
Yes, I completely agree with everything you said, and I loved everything you said from being honest, empathy, don't personalize these situations. I think it's okay to be angry for a time, and I know you were too. Like, I think that's totally fine and reasonable, but I don't think staying in that state, is helpful in the long run if all you do is feel like you're a victim to this situation forever, meaning that yes, you can feel like a victim for a time, and that's totally reasonable. But I think there's a time and a place for it. So there is that. Now, my final question for you is, as someone who's been navigating a very complicated situation, and to be honest, I feel like I could ask you dozens more questions, and maybe I will. But I guess depending on how you answer this, I might ask you one or two more. But I'd love to know if somebody was navigating a situationship, a relationship with someone like Andrew, what would you tell them? And by the way, it doesn't have to be an affair as well, too, but just if it
Yeah,
was just
spontaneously, the old me would say immediately, break up, run, take your stuff and run. Uh, count your notes, everything. Um, just look at this current relationship. No, it can't work. What is also very common, oh, this guy is using you. Yeah, stuff like that. I'm very happy that I didn't follow those advices. I also had this kind of advices from other coaches and therapists. I got all these warnings, how complicated affairs and relationships with avoidant partners could be. Yeah, and I really thankful that I didn't follow these advices because it doesn't help you. I mean, you behave the way you behave or choose people not because of eye color, even though we think that we like how the person smiles and that we like black or white hair or whatever. Uh, but we choose the persons based on our wounds, based on our gut feelings, based on our past experiences. And if you're not healed your wounds, your traumas, you will choose all the time the same kind of people. You can break up, you can go to the next one, and you will have the same kind of problems in your next relationship. And it was one my breaking point when after I got divorced and met Andrew, I thought it looks very similar. Why is like that? Why? I thought, yeah, now everything will be completely different, and it wasn't. And that was my breaking point. I thought maybe I shall take professional help and figure out what's going on here actually, why I'm choosing the same type of man. Yeah.
Yeah, I love your answer. I love your answer. And I think too, like, what I'm hearing is, you know, at the end of the day, it's something inside of us that we need to resolve, especially if it keeps playing out again and again and again. And I know a lot of people don't love hearing that. I certainly didn't. In fact, I can relate to what your answer was because I know for me, God, the number of avoidant people I've interacted with in romantic contexts, like I need more fingers on the top of my hands. Like I just so many. And each of them was so much learning as well too. And I'm grateful for all of them because I learned a lot along the way as well too. Didn't love the pain in a lot of those contexts, but you live and you learn.
No,
So
no.
there is that. One last thing, actually, I know I might be asking again, like many last questions, but one question that actually came to my mind was, sometimes um, I see a lot of influencers almost telling people, especially those that are anxiously attached, to just suppress themselves, to basically, give their avoidant partner space, to just, be more understanding of them. I don't feel like you've necessarily followed those scripts. Like, I don't feel like you've necessarily done what people might say online. Like, for example, there are some couples online where the anxiously attached partner is telling people who also have an anxious attachment, you need to basically just be very understanding of your avoidant partner. You need to be more spacious and generous, and you need to just understand they're different and all that sort of stuff too. I mean, yes, to an extent, but I feel like even though you've become more open, honest, boundary, you haven't also just like you haven't suppressed any of your anxieties or concerns. If anything, I feel like you've actually been speaking up a lot more for yourself. What are your thoughts on this?
It wasn't like that all the time. It's where I am now. But actually, I followed all these advices you see on social media. And in terms of giving space, it's also a very interesting one. You think you're giving space, but you actually you don't give anything. You give time without you, yes. But you're sitting there staring at your phone, waiting for messages and don't know what to do with your own life. It's not giving space. I mean, many would say, "Oh, I don't care if you go out with your friends. Yeah, I'm give you space." But in back of this, you're just nervous and you just have those pictures in your head with what your boyfriend or husband doing being while being outside and so on. I think you have to solve those problems to be able to give space to other people. What I have learned, I'm a lawyer. I don't believe in crystal balls. I'm not even religious and so on. But what I have noticed is that energy exists and that people notice very fast where you are. And I know you have more experience than me, but fearful avoidants are hypervigilant and they notice immediately what you say, whether it match to your current state. And if you say, oh yeah, I give you space, but actually you're nervous like hell and you're trying to control behavior by contacting them, by guilt tripping, by manipulating or things like that. And I think another person will always notice, and you think you give space, but actually you don't give space. And you have to give space yourself first to not be bothered, really not be bothered by this behavior. And how can you do that is where you really trust. And it's the weird one, which is maybe in this case, if you have an affair with someone or this kind of relationship, how could you trust this person? This person lying to his family members and to his wife and so on. And funny thing is, there is no other person in this world I trust more. And yeah, and it's different. And I think if you have trust in relationship, but it's also a wound you have to heal. If you generally don't trust people, you will go through phones. You will try to control other things, other people's behavior. You will try to control what they do, what they think, by just, yeah, guilt tripping, saying you don't care, saying I'm not important enough, otherwise you do this and that. And if you don't have all those feelings and triggers inside of you anymore, then you can give space to someone,
Yep. Yeah.
in my opinion.
Yeah.
So, and it was also my journey, I grew up in a household where manipulation was state of the art. And I learned a lot of many things from that, and I thought it's normal. And with coaching and learning about myself, I thought like, really, I'm doing this shit. I'm so bad. Why I'm doing that? What? And I start noticing a lot of my behavior. And the huge thing, what I have mentioned already, was that being honest, it's much, much, much easier than to manipulate others.
Yes.
And it was so, just incredible. Why? Yeah, it just be honest. And the right person stays, and yeah.
Yeah. Completely agree. And I will say it's funny when you were saying, I may not believe in crystal balls, but I believe in energy. I was going to throw in, well, I do think you could be a bit of a fortune teller right now in terms of understanding what Andrew's up to, because as I think we identified, his behavior is a bit predictable.
Yeah. Yeah. However, I mean, it's not predictable because of wherever, I looked into tarot cards, or this one. There was also part of my journey, tarot cards. Tarot was also one thing that you believed that they will tell you how things are. And you see a lot of social media stuff, that just pop up in your Instagram account and something. Yeah, I really know what you're going through right now. And you just start listening to that, Yeah, it sounds familiar. Yeah, you were right somehow. And swoop, like 10 minutes gone. You listen to one insane person telling you how your life should be and so on. It's just, Yeah, but I think you have to have all these experiences
Yeah.
to understand what is right and what is wrong for you. Maybe tarot is something good for someone else and helps. Maybe crystal ball helps. I rely on scientists and experience which have a lot of research and evidences, but it's my way. I don't believe in things. I'm really cautious with new things. And I learned that a lot of bullshit you hear on Instagram and social media, it sounds so good, it sounds so reasonable, it sounds so justified, but if you go deeper, you realize no, things are so much more complicated than that.
Yeah.
And you see also a lot of things on social media in relation to love triangles, what role lovers have in each other's lives, why people cheat, why they don't cheat, whether they love their partners or not love their partners. And it's everything is so much more complicated than that. And I think what we had was not standard. I have to add one another thing, that as we split up, there was a period of time we didn't see each other for 8 months. And in this time, I start seeing someone having an affair. He was also in relationship, and we met, yeah, a couple of times. And now, and I really was not able to understand why I don't like him. I mean, I liked him as a person, but why I don't feel this kind of connection with him. And but I feel really drawn to another person. And now I can say I always felt that, but now I can explain it in words. For one person, cheating was not a problem. It was like, okay, yeah, it's not a big deal. Yeah, I have a good relationship, but I just like diverse things. And with my current partner, it was always a big deal. It was a huge step. It was always connected with a lot of guilt and shame and so on. And it's about values. And I think it's also the thing that makes me trust him that much. I know that this complicated situation we are in is not about that someone just want to have fun somewhere. It's much more complicated. It's much more deeper. And now, coming to your comment where other people would say, yeah, if you healed, you won't be in a affair and so on. Um, I won't be in a affair again. Uh, I meet many people, and I still, many know that I'm divorced now, but no one knows that I have this secret relationship. And people try, even married people try to, yeah, to somehow connect with me. And I see there's like, oh, no, 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 just leave me alone. No, never, ever. And I also experience the same thing with dating. If someone pulls away, I also, oh, yeah, now I'm bored. Now I moved on the next one. Um, and it's, I think it's a part of healing. And it's different now because I'm in this relationship. Yes, I still have this, I have to deal with love triangle and the avoidant patterns and my anxious patterns and so on. But I'm really confident to say that it's changed. It's completely different, even if where we started was quite, yeah, common things. Love triangle, yeah, you are traumatized, trauma bond, yeah, you're traumatized, therefore you behave this and that way, and so on and so on. It was the starting point for sure, but now things has changed dramatically.
I completely agree with everything you said. And I love that assertion you made, which is I won't be dating anyone who's I won't be having an affair with anyone else again. I'm not planning on being with someone who's pulling away early because that behavior is not for me. I just find it boring. You know, I can hear the conviction in your voice and also the assertiveness. And I remember when we started, as we all are when we go through this, the confusion that dominates these entire experiences. Why do they do what they do? Do they actually love me? Why does it feel so cruel that they would do this, yet also say and do all these other nice things to me as well too? Like that's a phase. And I think now, I hear radical acceptance, there's boundaries for yourself as well too, in terms of what I'm willing and not willing to allow. And I think this experience with Andrew has been a real exercise in navigating boundaries in terms of figuring out how much am I willing to tolerate, how little am I willing to tolerate. Being honest, being like, Andrew, I am dating other people again. I am choosing to, step away from that as well too. I feel like, you know, a lot of people, and I work with so many clients who've been in your shoes, many people don't ever think they're going to be in a position like you are, in a secret relationship, if you will, or even having an affair as well. Like, it's not something that I think we come on planet Earth thinking, oh, we're going to do this. And yet sometimes it just happens. And it's really quite challenging for our morals and and like how we see ourselves. But I think, I can speak on behalf of a lot of the clients I work with. It's just one of those things too, where it's like sometimes I think a lot of people are particularly vulnerable. They haven't had, you know, intimacy in the way that they experience with these partners, and then it just becomes this transformative experience for a lot of people. And of course, we understand there is a lot of guilt, shame, and they can be damaged to, the families that are involved as well too. But I do think that there's a reason for why these things happen. And it's not simply even a case of, well, the partner who's having the affair doesn't like their spouse. It's way more complicated than that in a lot of these cases.
Yeah, it's so complicated. And I completely agree with you. And before I met Andrew, just a couple of months before that, I had a conversation with a friend of mine, and she told me the story happened to her years ago. And she told me that she had an affair with a married person and it didn't go well. And yeah, it was actually a really, really sad story because she got pregnant and so on, and the child does not survive, and really sad and many things. And and when I listened to the story, I only one thing I had in my mind: how can you date a married person? How dare you? It was something what never exist in my mind, and it it was funny enough. Sometimes I think that God has a sense of humor. A few months later, I met Andrew, and yeah, I was in an affair.
Yeah, it's funny how that works. I myself have not been in a situation quite like that, but I've had similar-ish experiences where, oh man, like I can understand the complexity of those cases as well too. Anyways, that was truly my last piece for that. I just want to say, Jasmine, thank you so much for sharing your story. And I think really a key thing I want to emphasize as we end this is I don't believe we are looking for a destination of healed.
No.
I think what I love about your story is it's a journey. It's very much an
Yes.
ongoing process. And I think, one thing I want to tie it back to is we need so much compassion and honesty for ourselves as we're going through this because it's the antidote for a lot of this.
Yeah, I think you have to get comfortable with your journey and enjoying every step you take, and not focus that much on the goal. If one day we will be together, maybe not, but it's not wasted time. It was really nice time, and it was really nice. Yeah, we shared many nice things. And I don't know how everything will be in the future, but however, I know how things are now. And now I can tell you now, and you remember I told you that a couple of weeks ago, you you see many comments on social media, don't date an avoidant. Why we don't see so many don't date an anxious partner? It's also like hell. Don't date this and that person. I think like, yeah, I'm comfortable to say I will date an avoidant partner again because I understand the dynamic. I understand what's going on. I'm for sure I won't date a person with strong narcissistic traits. That's 100% not on my list, but I learned to deal with other things. And I learned to recognize narcissistic traits and recognize other things in early stages. And I think it was a really big takeaway from all this experience that we all different. We have all our parts. No one is better than another. Just a secure partner is the secure partner. But if you didn't have the luck to be secure or to be raised in secure way, so you have to deal with all these things, and it doesn't make one person bad or another good, anxious bad or good, avoidant bad or good. We're just all different, and we have to learn. We have to take responsibility for the stuff we are carrying with ourselves, and we have to know our limits.
Yes, I completely agree. And what a great place to finish this on. So, thank you again, Jasmine, for joining me. This is my first time doing this segment of the podcast, which is very exciting. And
Thank you.
I'm really glad because this might become a thing where I interview people who want to talk about their stories as well too. So if anyone's listening to this and they're like, I want to be interviewed for my story, I'm like, yeah, go for it. Just reach out. Anyways, thank you. I'm sure I'll get someone else on this next time.